Hi, I'm Wes Allen with DM Tales, and this week I ran a sample encounter with some folks for Basic Fantasy RPG, and things were kind of interesting. Let's take a look. Now, I did my review of Basic Fantasy RPG a couple of weeks ago, and I'm really impressed. I love the game. It's very simple. It moves very fast. And best of all, it's free. So if you're trying to get interested in tabletop role-playing game and you don't want to drop money for it, there you go. And I have been putting together a party to play through a sample adventure. It's probably not going to be a long-term campaign, but we'll see how it goes. These folks, some of whom had never played before, and other folks had only ever played 5e, so it was a much different play style. I wanted to give them a taste of what they had in store for them. So I took 3 of the characters who were free for a test run one evening, and I basically set up a scenario. You're living in a local village. There have been loggers who have been chased away by some beasts. And you, wanting to do something nice for the village, have determined that you're going to go out and see what's up out here. So we ran the scenario twice. And the first time they went out and I had 2 bugbears that were waiting for them. Now, a bugbear is a nasty creature even up until 5e, but way back when, especially for low-level characters, this thing was deadly. And I put 2 out there. I'm just trying to show them how the game is different from maybe what they're used to. A bugbear is 5 hit dice, and the party, they're 1, and some of them only had d4s for their hit dice, so these guys are really squishy. They march out into the woods, and they're looking for whatever is happening to these loggers, and they stumble upon this bugbear. Luckily, the bugbear rolled that he was surprised, so they had a chance to cast a spell at it, and I wasn't supposed to allow it, but I let them actually put the one bugbear to sleep. It was too strong, really, for that spell to take effect. But unknown to them, up on a ridge that was hidden out of their sight was a second bugbear that saw its partner go down in a heap and got really, really angry and attacked. So in 5e, you have all sorts of options available to you, but in old school, you really don't. And this bugbear dropped down. They took a couple shots at it. Unfortunately, they rolled really poorly. And the cleric had the most hit points out of anybody in the party, walked up and stood in between him and kind of a thief magic user behind him, and was going to act as a shield for him. He had 7 hit points. Really strong. The bugbear hops down, bounds over, and proceeds to roll a natural 20, which is an automatic cat. Okay, fine. He did 1 claw. That was a hit. He rolled a second claw. That was a miss. So we're okay. He's got a good chance to survive here. And I rolled damage and rolled an 8. And the cleric goes down. Interestingly enough, this was the first time the player who was running the cleric had ever played any form of tabletop role-playing game. He lasted 1 combat round. So he goes down in a heap, and the other 2 guys are looking around going, oh no. The other guy was a magic user fighter, and he decides, okay, I'm throwing my magic missile at this thing. So he launches it out. He rolls pretty good, takes it down. Bugbear's got 19 hit points. It's not going anywhere. And the bugbear sees the damage and bounds over to the other guy who just fired the magic missile at it. And the bugbear decided he was going to bite the guy that just fired the magic bolt at him. And he hits. Oops. And again, rolls enough damage to take him out with 1 attack. And he goes down. Now there's just a magic user thief who's sitting there going, I got 4 hit points and leather armor. I got to get out of here. He's got a sleeping bugbear behind him, but he doesn't trust that that bugbear is going to be staying asleep for very long. And so he's not going to back up to get away from the bugbear. He's going to try to move laterally. This is a mistake, because if he had backed away, or really he was far enough even to run away and not be caught, he ended up staying within the movement range of the bugbear for the next turn. And so he's going to try to back up and take a quick shot, which you're allowed to do in Basic Fantasy RPG. And he takes a shot and rolls again really badly, and the arrow goes wide. And the bugbear just looks at the magic user thief and just snarls bounds over, takes a claw, and goes, whoop, and the magic user thief had 4 hit points and went right down. So they're like, well, that didn't end well. Incidentally, that was my first total party kill ever. It did not feel good. So we ran the encounter again. I let people know at that point. This was to show you just how deadly combat is. You need to be very careful about how you're going to approach things. Very, very important. So we backed everybody up. I took the bugbears off the map and I put in, they didn't know it at the time, but a brown bear. Large beast, very dangerous still, but not quite at the level of the bugbear. They marched in much the same way as before. They uncovered it. Nobody was surprised. So they rolled initiative. And even still, they got a couple of attacks in. They did some damage to it. Somebody threw their magic missile at it. But the bear came up and did 2 swipes on one of the characters. And again, knocked that character out in 1 round. And they were like, this is a bear. What are we doing? This would not happen in 5e. So they're very confused. So we paused the game at that point and we started talking about things. Let's look at what your advantages are right here. You're coming to it, so you're giving it all of its advantages. You all have bows. Why aren't you using them? Why are you getting into movement range with this thing? Back away. You're a thief. You can get back attack damage. And that moment when I told the thief that he could get back attack damage really led to one of my homebrews. He's got terrible strength and has only 4 hit points, and I realize if he ever gets within melee range, he's basically just going to die, and that's not a whole lot of fun. So what I said is, if you get behind a hostile token and you make an attack, if that token does not know that you are there, which means you either move silently or it's engaged with another character. That's really my criteria. So it's a little bit of a nod to 5e. Then you can get your advantage to hit with a ranged weapon. I think that's just kind of fair, especially for a really weak character. We'll see how it plays out if they level up a little bit. But for the start, to me, that's a reasonable homebrew rule. And so he marched around and he actually managed to get by in 2 rounds. The other character survived and he launched an attack and managed to take out the brown bear. That was really cool. And they were like, whoa, man, that was intense. And one of the players who used to play AD&D went, yeah, this really made me feel like I was in danger. So they like that. Not everybody likes that style of play. The 5e is much more cinematic. And to me, it's really fun. I enjoy 5e a whole lot and really like running it. This is just for a little bit of a change up. But he was really into it. This is something really that I was looking for. It's what I missed when we were playing 5e earlier, which is fine. People like different play styles. But it did lead me to a couple of other homebrews. One of the reasons why our cleric went down so easily in the first encounter, aside from the fact that the bugbear rolled a 20, was because his armor class was so low, because he only had a strength of 8, and if he put on chainmail, he was immediately heavy laden. And so his movement dropped to like nothing. And we were like, well, that's not too good. So he was wearing leather armor, and we were going to play with it, and we determined, okay, look, I'm going to let you swap 2 of your ability scores. So you want to give yourself a little bit more strength so you can carry more and maybe bulk yourself up, especially because at first level as a cleric, you're a frontline fighter, and if you don't have strength, you're pretty much screwed. And he went, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to move my charisma up there. Well, he's a cleric who now has a charisma of 8 from a charisma of 14. So I was like, all right, well, now you're kind of like the obnoxious cleric who goes and knocks on everybody's door and won't go away until people like slam the door in their face. He's like, I'm perfectly fine with that. So that's the way he's going to play the character. A couple of the other characters also decided they were going to switch 1 score around just to give them a little bit more chance of surviving whatever I have in store for them. And again, to me, that's a reasonable homebrew rule. We did the rules as written and ran and rolled 3d6 straight down the line. And those were the scores that they got. So moving 1 score around didn't really change things up too much for me. And then the third homebrew rule that I came up with, at first level, everybody gets max hit points. To me, again, that seems reasonable. You are meeting these characters at the moment they leave the farm and decide to become adventurers. But there's kind of a reason why they do that. And it can't just all be disgruntled. There's got to be something internally in them that says, I'm cut out for this. And to me, Letting them have max hit points at first level is a way of saying, yeah, you know what? They kind of stand out this way. They might have so much else wrong with them, but there's something internal in them that says, I have a chance to survive making this my profession. And that was kind of cool. But as for the encounters themselves, everything worked as advertised. D6 initiative, people who rolled the same number, moved at the same time. It was simultaneous action. Surprise on a roll of 1 or 2, or a 1 in the chance of an elf, that worked really well. And it actually helped them survive for 1 round instead of no rounds in the first encounter. And then combat actions and movement and whatnot, that all really worked as advertised. The 2 encounters moved really fast. It was done very quickly, and people had multiple times to attack or move or have an action. And you didn't feel like you were waiting around for 20 minutes while people got through, what bonus actions can I use? I'm going to do 2 attacks this time. I'm going to use my action surge. I'm going to do this. It was just, I have this, I can do this, I'm done. And those are technical terms, this, and then done. And so everything moved really, really fast. So this is something I appreciate about basic fantasy and OSR games in particular. They just tend to be more streamlined in some ways so that stuff is not quite as complex when you get into the nitty-gritty. Whole lot more rules and a lot of more charts, don't get me wrong, but for combat in particular, stuff just moved really quick, and I like that. That group that's playing with Basic Fantasy is going to be playing on Thursday nights moving forward. I have their basic adventure set up, so we'll see how it works. I'm beginning to kind of set up a backstory for them about how they all get together, and that should be really fun. But it was great to run that test and see these rules in action personally for the first time. And even the guy who died in the first encounter by 1 bugbear swipe said, that was actually really cool. So, even when you get knocked out, it's pretty fun. I'm going to go back to telling a couple stories about the Monday murder hobos next week. We have some tales to tell. But until then, happy playing, everyone.